Hello again, everyone. Welcome to today's video. What I'd like to talk about today is what to do when white plays e4. What I would recommend is that we play e5. And of course, if we're going to play e5 to e4, we have to know how to play against the Lopez. Invariably, white will start the game knight to f3. We're going to play knight to c6. And the Lopez, the oldest of openings, comes after white plays bishop to b5. Okay. White's attacking the knight. Bishop takes knight. He threatens, doesn't really threaten, but if he captures, bishop takes, we play queen takes pawn. It looks like white might initially be able to win black's e-pawn, but of course, he really cannot. Black has two good moves here, queen of d4, attacking the knight, attacking the e-pawn, and queen of g5 as well. Attacks the knight, attacks the g-pawn. It will win back the pawn. So it's really not a threat for white to win a pawn here, but on the other hand, we really do need to know how to meet this move. You know, there's various ways to meet it, but the best way, mainline theory says a6. This has been around since the time of Paul Morphy in the 1800s, and there's no reason at this point to deviate from that. White again could capture here, and we would capture back, and again, if white takes the pawn, we're going to win it back with queen of d4, queen of g5. So he's really not threatening to win anything here, and white usually does not capture the knight, but retreats back to a4. Okay. At this point, there's a number of choices for black here. Knight to f6 is possible, d6 is possible. There's various moves here. I'd like to play a move that the current 2020 Connecticut State High School chess champion, Preston DeLeo, played in a Rapids game, a 10-minute game against an international master a few months ago, towards the end of 2019. Actually, a year ago, a year and a few months ago. And he won the game, defeated the international master. And the international master, of course, is only one level, one step, if you will, below grandmaster. So his opponent was a very, very good player, essentially a professional chess player. But so here's the game that Preston DeLeo played. And while we look at this game, we're going to look at it primarily from the point of view of the opening, of what to do. So at this point, Preston played knight on g to e7. Okay, and there's a point to this move. It's a system of moves, and it's a very playable variation. And this is the line that I recommend you play when you're confronted with the Lopez. Okay, so white immediately grabbed the center, which is fine. You know, other moves are d3 and c3 with the idea of d4, but white immediately goes after the middle of the board. Black captures, white recaptures with his knight. Of course, he can't recapture with his queen because he would lose his queen to a knight. Black takes, white takes, and black moves his knight from e7 to c6, attacking the queen, and the queen plays back. Again, white could capture the knight, bishop takes, d takes. Could even stop black from being able to castle by playing queen takes d8, king takes d8. But a lot of pieces now are being exchanged off of the board, which only relieves black's game. And black's got both b's as well against bishop and a knight. So even though black can't castle, queens are off the board. He could play here, and perhaps at some point here, and king here. Black has no reason to fear an exchange of queens, even though it stops him from castling. Okay. So going back, let's see where we are. We have a knight here. Excuse me, we have a knight here, queen here, 2, 3, and knight takes knight. So we have knight here, 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 here. Pawn takes. Knight takes. Knight takes. Queen takes. Knight takes. And now white, instead of capturing the knight here, simply play queen to e3, and black gained some space, pushed back with b5, pushed back to b3, the white b, okay, bishop. Black continues with the ABCs of chess, attacks the center, develops pieces, preparing a castle, white castles, black castles, and white plays knight to c3, completing his development. And white now plays knight here. He's looking to play c5. He's looking to maybe to get off the board white's what appears to be an open line for white's good bishop here. So he can always exchange this. He can play here maybe, play c5. So knight to a5 is really the typical move that's played here. And black plays queen to g3. White plays queen to g3. Black attacks the queen, trying to drive the queen back to some other squares. It's got some interesting ideas coming up here. Queen to f3. And now black plays here. So black is concentrating. He's got his pieces kind of into the game. His queen is still sitting back on d8, but he can get that into play. He's going to play something like d6. We can maybe even play queen f6. So this is all quite equal for black here. And I want you to see how black develops his pieces here. Okay, he's just getting pieces out. White plays knight to d5, putting a piece in the middle of the board, and black exchanges the bishop off. Knight takes b3, a takes b3, so he's captured towards the center. That's the reason white captures with the a pawn. Usually you want to capture towards the center, let me say, not always, but usually. And black captures the knight. White, of course, recaptures, and now black plays queen to f6, getting his queen off the back rank into the game. Of course, if queen takes, black is not going to take with his pawn. He's going to keep his pawn straight because there's no reason to break up his pawn. He's going to recapture instead. If queen takes, queen's going to recapture using instead the bishop. Okay, this is about an even game, and when you're playing a person rated one step below grandmaster, that's an accomplishment just to maintain equality. White does not want to exchange queens. He plays queen here, attacking the unguarded d pawn. Again, it's possible that black can just play d6 here. Certainly doesn't appear to be anything wrong. Maybe queen here. But instead, Preston, the Delio is black, plays queen to e7. An interesting move here. Obviously not rook to e1, queen takes rook. There's nothing protecting the rook. Actually, yes, queen takes rook. So white has to get off the back rank his piece here to connect his rooks. And white moves to f4 with the bishop, attacking the unguarded pawn down here, perhaps, although it's not too clear that he can capture it. And black retreats to f6 with the bishop. If rook here, perhaps black plays here now, centralizing a queen, getting a queen aimed towards the middle, out into the game. Perhaps also here is possible too, moves like this, either of these. White plays rook on a to d1. He plays rook here, guarding the d pawn. And now Preston comes up with a very good move, a very strong centralizing move. Queen to e4 here. Wow, pinning the bishop temporarily against the queen because queen is unguarded. And there's actually a threat, I believe, to win a piece here with g5 because again can't take without dropping the queen. I think if it was me, if I was white here, I would probably have played here. Although black can then take the c pawn or play queen here. you know, black can maybe try to utilize this pin here with his queen, but notice that the queen, when it's in the middle of the board like this, even though it can be attacked and chased, it's got a lot of mobility. It can move to a lot of squares, can move to a lot of places. This is kind of why you want your queen, when you can, safely in the middle of the board, okay? This is a good example of centralization. White, in fact, moves his queen down here, threatening, again, to take the pawn here and getting out of this awkward pin in the middle of the board. Preston DeLeo, of course, plays the expected D6, protecting everything. Again, white could play here, but he's going to probably drop the C pawn here. So he plays C3, protecting the pawn here. And Preston plays queen of C2 anyway, now attacking the pawn on B3. So remember, any material gain, even a pawn, is a potential queen. So if white can go, if black, excuse me, can win a pawn, he's got a potential queen. In this case, it'd be a potential pass pawn that he could move right down here and make a new queen with. So it's important that both sides maintain material equality. Don't lose anything, even a pawn. You know, not even a pawn. You must look at your opponent's last move and make sure you protect the best you can. And white, of course, being a very strong player, plays B4, but that allows queen takes B pawn here. So Preston DeLeo, the 2020 Connecticut State High School champion, has won a pawn playing international master here. This is a 10-minute game, so this is a quick game, but you know, it's not an advantage for either player. Both players are very strong players. The international master certainly can play very good moves quickly. That's the reason he has that title. But here he could be into some trouble here. He plays rook here. He's probably trying to protect this pawn again. It's being attacked twice, and maybe at some point swinging the rook over as well towards the king's side if the opportunity arises. But Preston now trying to use his extra pawn, get an outside pass pawn. The power of an outside pass pawn especially can be very good. And white captures the pawn. Black, of course, doesn't want to lose a pawn. Moves the pawn back, plays rook takes pawn. He's still a pawn ahead here. He's got 3 pawns to 2 here. And he's starting to move these pawns. His pawns in chess lingo are starting to become mobile. And there's nothing more threatening than a mobile pass pawn. That is one of these has a pawn that can move quickly down the board. He's got his queen and rook over here. He can maybe bring into play his other rook and really get something going here. So white has to be very careful here. He's getting into a very precarious point. He plays rook to F3. I don't quite understand that move. That does not look correct to me. And Preston DeLeo immediately plays rook to A1. Rook's on open files. He can maybe bring his other rook over here. He's got a very strong game here. The threat is simply, obviously, if white captures the rook, queen takes here, mate in one move. He must interpose the B and he takes it. So this is already a desperate situation here as black. And on top of everything, the threat is really rook takes, queen takes, and perhaps a check here, driving the king to here, and a rook check. This is looking grim already for a white. There's also another threat here, which I'm not going to show you yet. We're going to look at it. So white plays rook here. He's hoping maybe to bring his rook back here, or rook here, probably rook back here. There is, for those of you sharp-eyed who have your computer eyes on here, if you're sharp-eyed, you can see a winning move. Black has a winning move here. He did not see it. The international master did not see it. The computers saw this immediately. Fritz 17 is the one I use. I also use Stockfish. They saw this in split-second fashion. It's a very good move here that wins the game on the spot. Just wins on the spot. Black is doing very well anyway, but this move would have ended all resistance immediately. Does anybody see the move here by any chance? This is a very hard move to find. As I said, both players in the game, this are 2 very strong players. Queen to B1 wins the game on the spot. The threat is immediate checkmate. Queen takes rook. And if rook takes queen, rook takes rook. Rook must interpose. Rook takes rook, checkmate. So it's there's nothing white could do at this point. He is just, and if rook down, queen takes rook, rook takes rook, rook takes rook, mate again. So it's a big, it's a killer move, but both players missed it. Preston missed it. The IM missed it, of course, too. So Preston exchanged the rooks, which is also a very good move. King takes rook. He plays queen of b1 check, as expected. King e2. Queen of c2 check. He's driving the king. King back to f1. And now, I mean, he could play a move like bishop takes c3. If rook takes queen here, it'd be mate. He plays rook to a1. This is the move that I would have played. I like this move. Again, the threat is just a killer check, and the same move, queen to b1 back here. Just a killer check coming up. Very hard for white to do much here. At this point, he plays rook to e1, and Preston at this point takes the c pawn. Bishop, he's now up 2 pawns, and he's got this very strong attack, very strong game here. Bishop takes rook is now threatened. Let's say rook to e1, bishop takes c3. White plays rook here, attacking the queen, getting out of this threat of losing a rook on e1. And black plays rook down. So pinning the rook, rook can't take the queen without being in check. And so white takes the rook, black recaptures, but now black is just 2 pawns up. He's taken the rooks off the board. He's 2 pawns up. This is the importance of trading material when you're ahead. And he's got 3 pawns to 1 over here. His queen is over here. His bishop is over here. There are no white checks at all here. White is in desperate trouble here. Very desperate shape here. He plays queen to f3. I'm not quite sure what he's trying to do at this point. Obviously, on queen checks, he's stopping queen check here. Yeah, he will run king here and try to escape, but I don't quite know what this move's about. Preston advances the pawn. Here comes the pawn, going to march right in and queen. How can white stop this? What can white do? He plays g4, which is apparently the idea of that, to try to get something going over here. And Preston just continues to push the pawn. An unimpeded passed pawn. Nothing at all for white to be able to do about it. He just can't stop it. He can't even get any checks. It's a very desperate situation if you're white. This is essentially white could safely resign here. Anything short of a catastrophe, he will lose. H6, queen to e3. It's the threat of queen check, but king to h7, and again, there's really no other good checks for him. b2, and he does play queen check, and Preston plays king to h7. He plays queen takes pawn, and Preston just simply marches in the pawn, queens the pawn, and his opponent, an international master, resigned the game at this point. He's a queen down. Black has a terrible check coming in here. He's threatening all kinds of things. He's up a queen. There's not even any checks for white. White can check with the queen, but we'll have it traded off. Very nice game by Preston DeLeo. And this is all example of our opening play with the black side against the Ruy Lopez. So let's look real quick at the first few moves of the opening, because I really want you guys to learn this system as black against the Ruy Lopez. I want to have you play black. When you play black against e5, I want to have you answer e5. And when you play black against e4, I want you to play e5. Okay, and one of the common moves, the common systems that white often plays is the Ruy Lopez. And I want to have you know what to do against it and learn a system against it. I mean, as in all openings, you need to practice these systems. You need to practice these series of moves on your own in games, on Lead Chess, or if you prefer, I suppose, chess.com or the Internet Chess Club. There's various online sites, Chess24. Wherever you play, practice your opening. So E4, E5, knight to F3, knight to C6, and then when white plays the Ruy Lopez, moving to B5, yeah, his king bishop, A6 is the move. White will usually go back, and then black will play knight and G to E7. And here we are here. Now, moves like D4, we're going to take, and we're going to exchange off here. I mean, other moves such as D3, we're going to fianchetto here with G6, castle, B to G7, knight to C3, I suppose is a playable move, D6, excuse me, and then we're going to castle as well. So we're going to, so unless he plays D4, we're going to fianchetto here, and if he does play D4, we're going to exchange off in the middle. So I hope you all enjoyed today's video. I mean, I want to see you play E5 to E4, and against the Ruy Lopez. Really, I want to have you try this system that we saw today, played so well by the 2020 Connecticut State High School chess champion, Preston DeLeo. Again, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you again next time.